here at CBI Offroad. Today we're going to be showing you how to install rock sliders on a 2020 Lexus GX460. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we've got 2 screws behind each door. We've got one right here, it's just a Phillips head screw. We're going to pull this one out. Right in there, we'll close this door. We have one more all the way forward on the inside of this door. Pull that one out, close that door. And then we've got a 10mm on this back wheel well on the inside, and then we have 2 10mm on the front inside wheel well. We'll get out. Alright, so next step after getting our 10mm and our screws out of the top of the side skirts, we're going to go ahead and unplug our light harness here. So we'll unplug this one connector, and then we'll go ahead and start undoing the brackets underneath here. Alright, so once we have that connector undone, we have 3 brackets that bolt into the body here. They're just a 12mm head nut, so we'll go ahead and undo those. And then this thing shouldn't fall off if you have your doors closed. Once we get these unbolted, we can open the doors and we can slide this side skirt off. Alright, so we got our brackets undone, we got our side skirt kind of hanging here. We're going to open the door, and there is going to be a clip back behind this, and then there's some clips along this as well. So we're going to pop this one out, and then we'll open up our front door. Pop our forward one out, and then we can kind of slowly pry this whole side skirt off. Alright, so we are going to be reusing this top half of this side skirt. So in order to take our kind of frame structure here apart, we need to go ahead and pop this top black plastic piece here. So to get this plastic piece off, it's all just clips. So we can just get something in here. We can pop these clips out of here. We're not going to be reusing this anyways. Alright, so once we get that out, we just have 3 10mm bolts right here. We'll unbolt those, and then this whole aluminum structure underneath, we're going to go ahead and pull out. Okay, so now with the piece out of there, there's going to be a couple more things we're going to remove from this. There's some small metal clips that hold this plastic piece together. So we're going to go ahead and remove that one. And then we got 2 on the other end. So we'll go ahead and pop those off. Alright, so once we got those off of there, we're going to go ahead and pop these clips and these clips off. And we're actually going to be removing the rest of this black piece on the outside. Alright, so there's also this piece right here. It's just a double-sided sticky tape. You can just pry off of there, and that comes right off, and there's one of those on each end. Alright, so now we have all the black trim off of our side skirt, and essentially we're going to be cutting this side skirt. Basically this bottom half is going to come off of here, and we're going to kind of follow our line that the existing side skirt has right here. Kind of follow this and cut it off right about there. So it's going to kind of follow this line right here, but we're going to cut it, we're going to put it back on, and then we're going to test fit our sliders on and see how much more or what we need to trim up as well. Alright, so now that we have all of our plastic trim out of this, we're going to go ahead and put it back on the vehicle, and then we're going to start trimming this and kind of getting it set in where we want it, and we can kind of final touch up where we're going to fit this thing at with the sliders on. Now we'll go ahead and put the 10mm bolts back in on the ends, and we can go ahead and start trimming. Alright, so we're going to get ready to cut, and so we're going to start measuring off where we're going to be starting our initial cut. We're going to measure down from this edge right here about 2.5 inches, and once we do, we'll go ahead and mark that off, and that's where we're going to start our first cut at. Alright, so now on the front, we're going to be measuring down again from this same seam here, but with this side we're going to be measuring down 4 inches. So we'll go ahead and measure from just the top corner. Alright, so now that we have both marks on our side skirt here, this is just going to be our initial cut. Once we cut this, we're going to go ahead and put our rock slider up there, make sure, see how much we need to move it or how much we need to adjust our cut line. Once we do that, we'll get the cut line finished off, we'll clean it up, and then we can finish putting the rock slider on. Alright, so we made our initial cut. I'm going to clean this up just a little bit just to get it smoothed out real quick on both ends, and then we'll put the rock slider up there and test it. Alright, so one last thing we're going to trim up before we put this rock slider on here. You have a tab here at the bottom that holds the base of the fender to the body. We're going to sand this thing up just to about to where we start sanding into the head of the bolt. So it gives us just enough clearance for the rock slider to make it right underneath of that. So we'll go ahead and sand that off. Alright, so before we put the rock slider up there, we do have a couple of brackets that we do need to unbolt off the frame, because our rock sliders are going to either slide up in between them, or it's going to kind of get behind them. So there's 2 bolts that hold our KDSS lines here on this side, our KDSS box that has 2 bolts on the bottom, and then another cover that covers 2 of the KDSS lines on the front. So we're going to go ahead and undo all of those. Alright, so one other thing, we are going to have to pry these hard lines out just a little bit give ourselves a little bit of room. Just kind of give them a good couple pushes on out, and these should leave us enough room to slide the rock slider in between there. There is one last bolt that holds the e-brake cable in place here that we are going to pull that one out as well. Alright, so now with the side skirts trimmed up and that one tab sanded down as well, we can go ahead and test fit our one side, make sure our cut's where we want it. If not, we can clean it up from there. We'll go ahead and put this one on. Alright, so we got our slider test fitted up in place. As you can see, our gaps are pretty tight right now, so we're going to want to take that and move that gap up. So we'll go ahead and you can mark it from here, or you can just go ahead and pull your slider off, sand it down as much as you think you need to. But we definitely want to get a nice smooth cut out of that. So you can definitely just kind of mark it with a Sharpie at a certain, how much ever you need to take out of that. We'll do that on both sides. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and mark this off. I just have a small pencil and then a small spacer that I'm just going to run right along the top of our slider. And I'm just going to mark this off so we have a nice smooth line to go off of. Alright, so we got our rock slider off there, we got our lines marked out, so we're going to go ahead and sand this all up and clean up these cuts. Alright, so we got our sliders back on, we got our side skirts trimmed up, and we've got about maybe 1/4 inch to 3/8 of a gap, which we want to keep about that much, because when the body and the frame do flex, you don't want it too tight, otherwise it's going to be contacting these side skirts, may get them, may break them, or it may touch, make noise, things like that. So again, we want about 1/4 inch to 3/8 of an inch of a gap there. So now with it all fitted correctly, we can go ahead and put the rest of our bolts in, tighten everything back up, put our original KDSS plates back in place, so that those are there, and then we can move on to the other side. Alright, so we're on the passenger side. We do already have the slider up here. There is only one bolt that you really have to remove on this side, and it's going to be that e-brake cable bracket bolt. So you'll unbolt that one before you get your slider on there, and then you can put your slider up. Now, there's some of these holes. This has a lot of holes in this thing. Some of the holes in the frame aren't threaded. So there are some holes that just won't be used. All the threaded holes, obviously you're going to find all those. Thread your bolts in, tighten everything down. Once you get your slider kind of adjusted, you can move it up and down just a little bit to get the correct amount of clearance for some stuff. But get all the rest of your bolts in place, and then you can tighten everything down, and you're good to go.